Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 470. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, usual cast of characters, Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel from 4Boxing News, and the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gents?
Hey, it's our all-star game. It's our all-star game tonight on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report.
Indeed. For those who are not watching the Major League All-Star game and want to check out some boxing talk this evening on a Tuesday night, here we are. For those who are new, to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show podcast, talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you wish to email us, you can do with comments, questions, etc. You can do so P4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you check out the description down below, you check out the links to check where to check us out all over social media. Link to the Facebook, link to us on Facebook, link to the YouTube channel, link to where you can find us on IG. And we still got a Tumblr page, holding on for dear life, but we still got a Tumblr page as well. If you wish to donate, you can do so. Let donation be the best nation. You can do so at Cash Me and PayPal. I'm thinking about getting rid of Cash Me because of the restrictions and the regulations that they put in place over the last 6 months. It's still up for now, but I'm thinking about getting rid of that in due time. Wouldn't matter to us, $1, $2, $5, wherever you want to contribute. It will help the overall production behind the scenes. Let's get things going. Locked and loaded weekend of boxing, and really locked and loaded this past weekend of boxing, and a lot of fights happening this weekend coming up. I'll go to you, Gail, ladies first. Since you were in New York City for the festivities, let's start with the ladies, specifically the trilogy between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. As boxing fans know, Taylor won their previous two bouts. There was a lot of people, including Daniel, who believes that Serrano won both of those matches. Not the case in this instance, Gail, as in my opinion, this was the most decisive win. Could someone mute? And I'm hearing some clicking in the background, please. This was the most decisive win for Taylor. I thought she won 7-3 scorecards here. Two things I got, three things actually. Uh, One, Gail, is that the attrition and the age and the wear and tear has taken effect on both ladies. Two, I do not understand the strategy that Serrano employed during that during this fight. And three, if Taylor decided to uh, announce that she's hanging up the gloves and going to retire, I say well job done, ma'am. Right off into the sunset and wait for your first ballot into the Boxing Hall of Fame.
Yeah, let's talk about the fight. First of all, what I will say is the atmosphere, the enthusiasm of the fans, a sold-out crowd, capping off what had been an excellent fight card all the way through the evening, was undeniable. And the fans still enjoyed it, but they did expect to see at least some version of the first two fights. And I did too. And I'm still, days later, completely perplexed. I'm just thrown off by this game plan from Serrano and her trainer, Jordan Maldonado. Now, Serrano had made it very clear, and I think rightfully so, is that her approach in the first two fights didn't get her across the finish line to a win. And she was clear that she understood if anything was going to change, it had to be her. It had to be her. But well, I just don't think that deciding to play possum and put on a slow rolled tactical fight when that is not her strength. I'm not sure how in the world they came to that decision as the change, because they played right into Taylor's strengths, who is a master at all the key skills of boxing. And as Katie showed, she could box like that all night. On the other hand, I think Katie looked as sharp as ever, perhaps the sharpest she has been in all three fights, because she wasn't continually pressured and challenged like she was in the first two. I do also think that the strategy was in part constructed because of the headbutt issue. And I think there's, maybe some serious PTSD. I'm kind of chuckling about it a little, but it's no laughing matter how much damage Serrano took from headbutts by Taylor, because that's just simply her fighting style. And, she leans in and there they go. And that last fight was very rough on Serrano. She suffered a horrible cut. It's a miracle that fight wasn't stopped before the final bell. And they were absolutely determined they were not going to let headbutts and those vicious cuts happen. Unfortunately, what it meant is she just didn't engage the way we all expected, maybe hoped for, and it took away her best tools, honestly. Both Taylor and Serrano landed 70 punches total in 10 rounds. Now, or 12 rounds, 10 rounds, but that's 10 2-minute rounds, bear in mind. So it sounds low. Until you look back at the CompuBox stats for the first two fights, Serrano landed that many punches in the final single round of the second fight. I think it was a big mistake. It gave Taylor an easy road to the win. And truly, at age 39, after some of the wars she's been in, she looked as fresh as I can remember in the last few years. So I'm not convinced she is going to retire. There is one more check mark on her bucket list. She wants that fight at Croke Park. And I think she's going to hold out for that. Maybe next spring, have her final fight be in front of her home country where she is a national hero. And truly, I would not begrudge her that at all. It'd be very exciting. And what a fitting way to go out. I think almost a movie script or a fairy tale into her career.
I think Mike may have dropped off a little bit. So let me jump in here. And yes, I am one of the people that wholeheartedly believe that Amanda Serrano won the first fight, anyways, the second fight.
And I'm right behind you.
And interestingly enough, part of me understands why she made this change.
Okay, testing. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I understood a little bit of the game plan was, because if you can't win in your style, you have to change it sometimes a little bit different style. The difference, unfortunately, and what made this feel more like a decisive victory for Taylor, a victory that you cannot argue against in this case, is that she essentially fought Katie Taylor's fight. She maintained pace. She didn't try to outbrawl, and she did avoid the headbutts when she could. Now, I'm not going to say there wasn't a void of any exchanges. No, there were plenty of good exchanges throughout the fight. But unfortunately, the pace of the fight did not favor Amanda Serrano at all. It completely favored Katie Taylor. And when you give her that avenue, she is going to beat you technically, which is what she did in this case. Now, should Amanda have changed something? Maybe do a hybrid of both? Yes. try to come in aggressive, but aggressively cautious at the same time. But Amanda does feel like a type of fighter where if she doesn't go 100, she's gonna go 0. There's no in between, which is unfortunately what cost her the fight in this sense. And despite that, both of these women have nothing to be ashamed of in this fight. They sold out Madison Square Garden again. The first fight sold out Madison Square Garden, and they did it again. And Gail is right. There was good advertisement throughout. You could tell people were excited about this fight. And yeah, it didn't turn out to be the war that most people expected, but it was still a really, really good fight. And I still want to see what's next for either Amanda or Katie, because yes, Katie did mention retirement, but let's be real, boxing retirements are about as legit as a payday loan at this stage in life. But hopefully, like I said, we get more of this in the future. But I will say this. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor's your Paula Ayala. As sad as it is to say, as much as I will stand on business and say that she won the first 2 fights, you can win the fight, but you can lose a decision. And unfortunately, that happened a lot with Johnny Tapia, with Paula Ayala. And that you just get that one fighter that people just are not going to give you the credit of beating. But hats off to Amanda. Hats off to Katie. Hats off to this card in general, because this was an amazing card.
What was an all women's card, excuse me. Yeah, folks know I have my issues with Jake Paul, but as a promoter, I got to give him his due for now what he's doing, particularly for women's boxing. There were so many fights on this card that if we was to cover each and every one of them, we would have an extra long show, and I don't want to do that this evening. So I go just highlight a couple of other fights on that card. Go back to you, Gail. Alycia Baumgardner. Pretty lengthy layoff. She hadn't fought in close to a year. Returned to the ring to defend her undisputed belts at 130 pounds against Jennifer Miranda. And the anticipation, I should say, was that Baumgardner would not just win, but win in impressive fashion. Wasn't necessarily the case. Baumgardner did enough to get the decision. I agree with that. But Miranda gave her fair share of problems, landed her fair share of punches on the bomb, right? Was this a case of the result of the layoff? Was this the case of working with the
And we lost Michael again, but I got the gist of those questions, so I'll answer. It was a culmination of a lot of factors. There was no one reason for that performance. Now, let's first of all point out she won the fight, and it, to me, was not terribly controversial. There were people that thought Miranda did enough to pull it off, but Alycia finally got her motor running near the end, and I think that pulled her out of the fire. No doubt there was ring rust involved. No doubt. She's had 4 rounds in 2 years before this. So no fighter can overcome that. That's very difficult. She had switched trainers. I do think that has been a good decision for her. Now working with Derek James, but they've only worked together, a matter of months. So while she says that she feels it's a good relationship and it's going to build, it's not there yet. So then you had that. And credit to Miranda. As we watched her through the week building up and at the media workout, she made a point at the public workout of putting on quite a show. And there were a lot of looks around saying, whoa, she looks pretty good. Yeah, maybe we're underestimating her. I do think that it turned out Jennifer Miranda, who nobody knew, although she did have an unbeaten record, she'd just not faced any opponents of note. And she was also coming up a weight division. So all those factors, you put those together and think, okay, this is an opponent chosen for Baumgardner to look good. Oh no, Miranda was highly competitive, very entertaining. She can punch. She's one of those fighters that can come at you from very awkward angles. Her style's very interesting. She shifts her feet, and she gave Alycia hell, especially in the first half of the fight until Alycia got her own feet under her. I'm really looking forward to seeing Miranda again. She is signed to MVP, and she raised her stock considerably among the fans. Even though she lost, she gave a really good effort. Alycia, she was, fairly honest about her performance. I mean, she gave herself a B plus. Not sure about the plus. But again, she won the fight. She did what she absolutely had to do. And it is undeniable that Alycia has star power. She has charisma. She sells. She shows up very glamorous. She knows how to trash talk when necessary in the right way. She's a she's a wonderful ambassador for women's boxing. MVP knows she's sellable. So I'm sure they were breathing a big sigh of relief seeing that Baumgardner pulled out that win. But I'm not horribly concerned.
Hello?
Yep, we hear you, Michael. We hear you back. Just wrapping up to say about Alycia, she got that win. She wants to have another fight before the end of the year, maybe two. And I think that's we can hear you, Michael. I think that's a very wise decision for her to get busy and stay busy to get rid of that ring rust. And also, it will accelerate her training relationship with Derek.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having technical issues on my sincerest apologies. Where did you stop off? My apologies.
I got through my review of Baumgardner, which was to say that, in essence, there were a number of factors. Ring rust is real. She's got a new trainer. And Miranda turned out to be a lot better than we thought she was going to be legitimately. And I'm looking forward to seeing Miranda again.
Quick word here. Where does Baumgardner go from here? For me, she could stay at 130. Maybe she could possible fight with Serrano. But for me, I want to see how she does at 35 with the champions there, right? Particularly with Caroline Dubois in the Brazilian, who's fighting what was her name? The Brazilian lady who won the gold, who's fighting with Matchroom, right? If she thought Miranda gave her a test, I want to see. I think we will really find out what Baumgardner is at 135, because at 130, despite the struggles here, I just think she's too powerful for anybody in that weight division.
She does want to stay busy. She wants at least one more fight this year, if not two, which I think is a very smart decision because she does need to shake off that ring rust. But MVP is not going to put her in anything horribly challenging just yet because she's so marketable. She drew a lot of attention during fight week. She knows how to put on the glam on the red carpet. She's a great interview, very dynamic. They don't want to hang her with a loss if they don't have to. So I think they will not horribly test her. What's sort of interesting is that one of the young prospects that fought in the media workout, who's promoted under their agreement with Amanda Serrano, Elise Soto, had a wonderful performance. But, she is only 20 and she's still fighting 4-rounders. I don't think they'll sacrifice her up, even though that's super makeable. I mean, it's hard to say who they're going to bring in. There are a lot of women in and around these divisions. Wouldn't surprise me if they leave her at 130 and bring some other girls up like they did Miranda. Which in theory is a little less threatening to her.
Yeah, but I hear you. But look, she's beaten Terry Harper before. That's how she won
Yeah,
the title.
she has.
South her. But Han, Dubois, and Ferreira, I would love to see her.
I'll tell you who I would really like to see her fight. She owes Delphine Persoon a rematch, right? Because that was the only 4 rounds she's fought in the last couple of years, and it was a no contest because of a headbutt caused cut to Persoon. Now, the other benefit to Baumgardner is here's Persoon, who's, a year older, Persoon is now 40. So, where does she stand? She's had another fight since then and got a knockout about a month ago in Belgium. So, if that's a makeable fight, it would be very interesting because Alycia was willing to face her last year. And she was handily winning at the time of the headbutt on the cards.
Yeah, that's my only problem. Persoon, my fear is in watching and looking back at that fight, to me, it's clear she's past her prime. Yes, she got the win since, but she's only getting older.
Right, but that's exactly the kind of opponent they want to put Alycia against, a known name that isn't maybe as threatening, because, she is too valuable, no pun intended, to most valuable promotions right now for them to really, really challenge her until Alycia feels, she's polished her game back up to where she was a couple of years ago.
The last fight I want to talk about, Daniel, Shadasia Green fighting Savannah Marshall in what was a unification bout at 168 pounds. It's been a minute since we've seen Marshall in the ring, right? Green, most people remember for her loss to Franchon Cruz, right? Last year, I believe it was. Very entertaining fight. I didn't expect Green to buckle Marshall in the way she did in the 5th. Kudos to her for getting the decision. Ended up being the fighter of the night. Got basically a $250,000 bonus. They're talking MVP, trying to pit Green against Clarissa Shields, who was in attendance watching from ringside. Okay, nice win by Green, the biggest win of her career against a very good fighter in Marshall. But do I think that she can hang with Clarissa?
We lost Mike, but I think
the man again. But I think we get the gist of the question.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Daniel, have at it.
Yes. Oh man, this is the Shadasia Green that I expected against Franchon Cruz. More poised, more technical, and had a good snap to that punch. Now, there was a bit of holding in this fight, and it got to a point where she got the point deducted, Shadasia Green, supposedly for holding too much. And I said Thomas Taylor, luckily, he did call it more down the middle, which was fair. But you could tell Shadasia Green wanted to make a statement in this fight. And what better way to do it than do it against somebody that is a very tough opponent and in many ways a proxy, actually a direct proxy to a fight with Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall. Very, very good fight when it comes to Shadasia Green. She did not leave any room for doubt. And like Michael mentioned before he dropped off, it was worthy enough to get that $250,000 bonus that Jake Paul gave out to the fighter of the night. That says something, even for somebody like Jake Paul. But I'm glad it's been. Yeah, and that's actually a good thing when it comes to Paul. But Gail, Clarissa ain't the only. Clarissa and Shadasia may not be the only fight for the quote that may be coming up. So there might be some waiting when it comes to Shadasia Green, or do you think that they'll try to make that fight straight away?
I think, well, the question really is number one, and MVP was very transparent about this. They do not know how many more fights Clarissa has under her contract with Dimitri Salita and Salita Promotions, whether it's just this coming fight or whether she's got one more after that. And it sounds to me like they would like to sign her to MVP before they match her up with Shadasia, which gives her that, one more fight under Salita Promotions. And, we'll see what happens, and it's interesting because, of course, you've got, a lot of the fighters now in MVP stable who are very familiar with Clarissa and maybe gives her another possible opportunities. Who knows? I'm not. I do think facing Clarissa for Shadasia, it's a very, very different challenge. I mean, no question, she would be the underdog in that fight. But she obviously learned a lot from that big, messy fight she had with Franchon. And I do think she'd make it a real contest, in a way that very few have ever done. And that, depending on whose banner that's under, that's a huge money fight. Absolutely huge. There was no question whatsoever that she earned that bonus. I mean, the only other fighter on the card who came even close, in my opinion, by performance was Shernika Johnson, who absolutely beat poor Sharetta Metcalf pillar to post. I mean, she beat the crap out of her. But because it was such an easy win, Shadasia's battle with Savannah was so much more impressive. Both those girls can punch. Both of them are hella strong. They come forward. They both got great chins. Both of them got rocked. The crowd really went nuts when both of them got hit at different times. And after the fight, to your point about the holding, she was pretty sure after the fight that the real reason that Taylor docked her a point is that he'd warned her once, he caught her again, and he grabbed her by the hand to pull her away, and she slapped Taylor's hand away. And she thinks that he got mad and said, "All right, you're going to be that way? I'm taking the point off." And she later said, "I was mad. It was poor sportsmanship on my part. He's got a job to do." Of course, she was saying that after she won. And thankfully, it wasn't a factor in the fight.
Yep, and that's actually said a good thing. And like I mentioned, Thomas Taylor called it down
Yeah.
the middle. Called down the middle.
Best referee in boxing, in my opinion, or at least in the top 2 or 3. I mean, I would put Harvey Dock up there. I'd put David Fields up there, who's probably the best. I would say the best heavyweight judge there is right now. So, it is hard to criticize Tom. He's he makes very few mistakes, and for Shadeja to admit that she was getting a little bit of attitude, and he nailed her on it. She owned it later, but when you're the champion, it's easy to own it. And I see you're back, Michael.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Technical issues. The Wi-Fi is acting up on me. Let's move on here. So my Wi-Fi won't act because I'm having such technical issues. Try to run through these fights as quickly as possible, right? Those that card, Taylor Serrano, Taylor Serrano 3. That was at MSG, right? The following evening, um, in Queens, where they played the U.S. Open, for tennis fans out there, you had a card that was promoted by Matchroom, I'll get to the main event in a second, which one of the surprises of the year, depending on who you talk to. But a couple of undercard bouts here before then. I'll go to you, Daniel. Subriel Matias fighting Alberto Puello for the WBC crown at 140 pounds. And Matias is now a two-time champion at 140, right? Uh, However, he got the decision, but based on what I was hearing on these boxing streets on social media, Twitter to be specific, um, there was some disagreements on that. Your thoughts on the fight? Do you think that the right man won?
Yes, I do believe that the right man won. Matias did win. It was a very close fight back and forth, and it's going to highlight sometimes a little bit of difference between this and the main event of this card. One particular style is going to favor a certain part of the audience or the boxing fan base, and another style is going to favor the other. And whichever one is the better one down the middle is usually the one's going to win. And Matias, that was his work. He did a lot more to win the close rounds of the fight than Puello did, and ultimately did give him the victory. But I can see how people can say Puello won the fight. I'm not discrediting that whatsoever. And you can technically say a coin flip could decide the fight, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not mad with the Matias decision. I personally do think he won. And 140, getting a little spicy again. Getting a little spicy again. Oh, did things freeze?
Are we muted, Michael?
I believe so. I
I
think
think you know, are you guys having weather issues?
well, in the East Coast. There is a bit of a. We've had some storms coming up, and then
Yeah,
actually up here, and we're supposed to be getting an inch of rain on Thursday, so that I would not be surprised.
yeah, a little bit.
But
There we go. We just lost him again. Um, I will greet our friend Compliance Restoration and Roofing. As I told him, the roof is in the house. Well, I'm assuming him. Comment: Matias Puello was a good fight. It was a good fight. I didn't know Puello could fight the way he was forced to fight. He did great, but Turkey has plans for Matias. No question about it, right? I mean, it wasn't a robbery by any means. Um, Matias was the one showing the effective aggression. He was usually the one coming forward and dictating the pace. He
mm-hmm.
did gas out near the end, though. No question about it. Puello, was still looking pretty strong after they were both involved in a really good effort all the way through the fight. Um, and it's interesting to note that that is the first fight Matias has won as a professional by decision instead of stoppage. The very first one, which just shows you how competitive it was. And after Matias looked so damned bad against Liam Paro, he wanted redemption, and good for him. He got it. He worked for it and he got it.
Yeah,
Okay, let's try this again. Also on that card, a lot of talk about this fight between Shakur Stevenson and Williams and Zepeda, right? There was a segment of the boxing fan base that felt that Zepeda could give Stevenson a lot of trouble. Stevenson didn't look good in the fight with De Los Santos, right? And before leading up to the bout, you had people who were referring to Shakur as a quote unquote runner. Uh, However, um, and when the spotlight was really on him, Gail and Daniel, uh, dare I say, he put on one of the best performances of his career. Um, I questioned whether he really got hurt in that third round, but from that point on, you talk about putting on a a exercise in skill, accuracy, just overall boxing class. That's what we saw from Stevenson. And I think he may have showed some more power than people gave him credit for because um, he certainly, in my opinion, got the attention of Zepeda with some of those shots. Um, Overall, to me, that was the performance of the weekend.
I would agree. I would agree because one of the things that Shakur did very, very well was fight in the corner and counter very well. Now, the only thing I would disagree is I wouldn't call it the wash the scorecards were. I think Zepeda got a few more rounds in than what the scorecards gave him, but you can also tell that Shakur, as the fight went on, particularly after the fourth round, because he stopped a little bit in the third, he started to time Zepeda better. He started to counter Zepeda better. And by the ninth, 10th round, started to more dictate the pace of the fight. Now, like I said, this was a great fight all around, but it was the result that I expected when you put somebody like Shakur versus somebody like Zepeda. And quite frankly, Shakur needed an opponent like Zepeda. Somebody that was a pressure fighter, somebody that was willing to eat the punches that he needs to eat in order to get his offense in, and somebody that had a motor that was not going to stop. Shakur needed that type of opponent to showcase the fact that, yeah, I'm highly skilled, but I'm not a runner. I'm willing to stand and I'm willing to trade, but you'll clearly see that I can beat somebody in the exchanges and not only out hurt them, outskill them, which is what he did. Great performance by Shakur. Like mentioned, like compliance restoration mentioned it. He has silenced almost all in all critics. Now, the only people that are probably talking are fans of Tank Davis. And quite frankly, they should be pretty quiet right about now.
We'll talk about Tank in a bit, Gil, but there are certain fights, there are certain moments where fighters grow up right before our eyes. That's what we saw Saturday night in Queens. The fighter just grew up and become, in this instance, went from a boy to a man.
Yeah. You know, Shakur is so skilled that he hasn't had to put himself at risk. And he realized he was losing his fan base. He was losing, he was losing his position in the sport, not due to his skill, but boxing is also entertainment. And he was not on the top 10 pound for pound list for entertainment, not at all. And I think that he finally heard the criticism, and whether it took a big check from the Saudi General Entertainment Authority to make him pay attention or not, he got the message. And I'm so impressed the way he responded, not just with his show of skill, not just with his willingness to finally let the fans see him, get hit, to take a hit here and there. Although the truth is, Zepeda was so much less effective than he has been against previous opponents, because even when it looked like Zepeda was nailing him, pinning him against the ropes, Stevenson, he avoided, parried off many of those punches. His defensive skills are just amazing to watch, truly. But you know what? He also dealt with it with a little sense of humor. If you saw him wearing that Tom and Jerry hat all week, good for him. He put it right out there. It's like, yeah, I hear it. Yeah, I get it. You'll see. You'll see. And he lived up to his word. A lot of boxers before a fight say a lot of things, and they might win. Maybe they lose. Maybe that they can't back up what they're saying. He did that. To me, that went as far as the actual performance in the ring. It was, here's how I'm going to do my business. You're all going to see. You've all been after me. After the fight, he said, "See, well, I let myself get hit. I fought the way I did to prove a point. I'm not a puppy. I'm not a poodle. I got dog in me." Who can argue with him? Nobody.
No one indeed. Very, very professional. The key is now to build off of this. Let this not be a one-off. We all know the fight that needs to happen, that should happen at 135 pounds. That is Shakur and Tank. Will it happen? Let's just say in the next 6 to 12 months. Boxing fans have their fingers crossed. And speaking of Tank Davis, well, no, no, no. I'm sorry. The last fight here, and while Shakur may have been the most impressive, while Taylor Serrano was the most talked about. The most surprising result, and one of the most surprising results of the year, was what Hamzah Sheeraz did to Edgar Berlanga. Gail, I would have been on last week. I just couldn't make it because I could very well see Shiraz beating Berlanga because I was never that impressed with Berlanga, and I think you talk about a dude who was all pie. I'll call him a pyrite fighter, fool's gold, right? Um, you want to talk about exposed? He got exposed and exposed hard by Shiraz, who was moving up from 160. By the way, was patient for the first 3 rounds, and then the latter half of the fourth round, he put on the power, and when he did, Berlanga had no answers, none.
I was so enthusiastic about Hamza Shiraz. And when he was fighting at 160, he looked great. The middleweight division is so thin on talent. I had hoped that Shiraz might inject some excitement back into the division, and I could envision him down the road here a little bit, challenging Janibek Alimkhanuly. And then he had that fight with Adamas, which is just awful. No, there's no sugarcoating it. It was a horrible fight. He got a gift split draw out of that fight. And, he had a come to Allah moment. He really did. He moved up. I think that was a very smart decision. Even smarter is training with Andy Lee. He went to Ireland. He had been training in LA. And you get great sparring in those gyms, but man, you are under a microscope. There's a lot of gossip. We all know what goes on in those gyms, and people are talking. And he admitted in a conversation I had with him in an interview that's posted that, guys came at him, right? They all wanted to sort of test themselves against this guy who was supposed to be the next big thing, blah, blah, blah. So he moved up. He went to a training camp where he had no distractions at all, and it so paid off. And I do think that experience in his training camp that was, with a new trainer, with a former fighter, not unlike him
Shout out to
in a
Andy
lot of
Lee.
ways. Andy Lee, trainer of the year, candidate for sure. He he found the right place and he found the right mindset. So when he came in for fight week, he was very calm. He was physically calm, he was mentally calm. And thank God, because Berlanga came at him all week. And when he realized that he couldn't really get a rise out of Shiraz, he decided to go after Oscar De La Hoya instead. And Oscar entertained it. So that was a big difference. But boy, if you're going to talk that kind of stuff, you better back it up. Just like hearing Shakur, he needed to back it up, and he did. Berlanga, there was no way, short of a early destruction, that he was going to be able to back up all that talk. And wow, did he crash and burn. That was, even for someone in many ways as unlikable as Berlanga, that was brutal. Shiraz actually knew he was losing the first couple of rounds, but he had to settle down. And boy, how did he make 160? He was huge in the ring. He's really gangly. He's got very long arms and legs. But once he found that distance, his accuracy is excellent, and he was able to let his hands go. Maybe we underestimated how tough the weight cut was for him at 160 in that fight with Adamas. Maybe that was why he was so sluggish. But boy, if this is what we're going to get to see in the future, we already had a very exciting 168-pound division, and now we've got yet another talent in the division. And no question, at least at this point, Sheeraz has suddenly joined the short list for the Canelo lottery ticket in 2026, depending on what happens with him and Terrence Crawford in September. And that's
I mean,
crazy, crazy, and he can hardly believe it. He considers Canelo a personal hero of his. He to be mentioned in the same breath. He's still processing that, and I'm glad that he at this point is very humble about it. That will serve him well down the line.
continue on, Daniel, but I've got to chime in. I know this fight is not going to happen anytime soon, but moving forward, I would love to see Shiraz in a battle with Diego Pacheco. Style matchup galore.
Ooh,
Yeah, sign me up. Sign me up.
oh
Or
man,
or Christian and Billy. I'd take that one in a heartbeat too.
Mobilian Pacheco. Oh, that's a good triple threat right there in 168. That's a good triple threat, and I'll say that my last there's 2 cents in this fight. How good does Top Rank look now that they were willing to pretty much cut ties for Berlanga when they did, and watch as Eddie Hearn's technical reclamation project essentially failed. Even with the Canelo payday, it essentially failed. And Berlanga's always going to be one of those, unfortunately, really, really disappointing fighters in a way, and especially for the Puerto Rican fans who are still, unfortunately, looking. They're still looking for the next Tito Trinidad. It's gonna be a while because we know Berlanga ain't it.
You with us, Michael? Muted.
Uh,
I think
whether
we
Daniel?
lost. There he is.
maybe for a bit, but uh, actually, I just sent it to you guys on the private chat. Michaela Mayer decided to do something spicy.
Yes, she did. I just saw that also. Michaela kind of clapped back at Miss Glamorous Alycia Baumgardner, saying that, while Alicia's got the glam and so forth, uh, you got to remember who beat her.
Oh, continue on with the talk about Shiraz and the win over Berlanga, Daniel, while you give us that private message.
Oh no, I already did that. already,
Oh, okay.
I
I'm
said,
sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah,
We're
I
all
said my
good
piece on that one. Yeah.
there.
Let's move on to the news here. And I kind of teased this about Tank Davis in our discussion about Shakur. Well, in trouble again when it comes to Tank, arrested on a domestic issue down in Florida. I mean, listen, he's supposed to fight Lamont Roach next. Just don't know when. My problem with this guy, I get the popularity, I get the exciting style, but this dude is what, 30 years old now. Um, this is not the first his first instance when it comes to domestic trouble on his behalf. When it comes to women, I talked about the maturity level of Shakur Stevenson in the ring, right? When are we going to see that level of maturity from Tank Davis outside of the ring? Because whether it's this, whether it's with a lot of his tweets and what he says only to delete hours later, I just don't get it with this dude. Grow up.
Okay. Unfortunately, this is something that we have dealt with Tank before. Remember, there is literal video of Tank forcibly dragging a woman in a basketball game. Forcibly dragging her away. You could tell that it was not exactly a consenting pool. But the bad problem, unfortunately, is that what makes him an exciting fighter is also what makes him a really, really bad detriment when it comes to growth. He is an exciting guy. He technically doesn't have a filter in a lot of things, but sometimes you need that filter in life when you learn certain things, when you see that your behavior outside of the ring is going to have a lot of more of the impact than the behavior inside of it in certain areas. And we don't know what the situation is going to turn out to be. It's granted, we've seen plenty of times an arrest happens, domestic violence, high profile athlete, suddenly a briefcase mysteriously changes possessors and it goes away. Maybe it'll happen again in this case, but unfortunately with Tank, it's a situation that if it does happen, it'll be suspicious right away. And ultimately, like that, it's just not a good look overall.
The big problem is because is that it's become a pattern. It's not an incident anymore. It's a pattern. We have to remember that Tank is still on probation for his previous conviction, for which he was going to serve house arrest, screwed that up, ended up doing 44 days in local custody. And when you're on probation and are arrested again for perhaps another felony, there are a lot more tools for law enforcement and the judicial system. If you on probation are on a very short leash, you cannot be committing more crimes because it gives the legal system the right to put you straight in custody for violating your probation. Do not pass go, no trial necessary. You violated the terms of your probation. There's where he is now. There's not going to be a roach fight on the so-called proposed date, which I believe was August 16th. That's not happening. That's 4 weeks away. There hasn't even been an announcement. And now this is hanging over their head. No promoter in their right mind would go forward with that fight, which is really a shame for Lamont Roach. No question about it. So, yeah, this one is bad for Tank. Maybe the incident itself, if people are looking at her just saying, well, and you're right, Daniel, money changes hands and a civil settlement takes place. But in this case, though, there's a lot more serious criminal behavior involved. Tank has demons, no question. We all know he came up a very difficult way. A lot of boxers do. Very few people get into boxing from an affluent background, and many of them don't get in because they had, a peaches and cream background either in a family way. So he needs to deal with that in a very straightforward way. There is no shame in admitting a lot of the things that he's been through and have happened to him. He's not got the tools to deal with, and he's clearly taking them out with criminal behavior when he gets frustrated with the women in his life. And he cannot keep going down that road without seriously addressing it for himself as a human being. Boxing is secondary. He's got to get a handle on it, or it's going to eat him alive for the rest of his life. That has to come first, boxing second. Probably the only reason he's even got a pass to this point is because he is so damn talented. He is such a huge fan draw. And boxing, is going to do everything they can to keep him in, to not lose him. He's important. And there are so few American stars right now. So he's enormously valuable in that way, but he needs to take care of his business. Now, what I'd like to see as a little bit of a solution for quite a few people, we had hoped that we're going to see this rematch and then get the Stevenson fight. That timeline's all blown up. Let's put Lamont Roach in against Shakur. Why not?
Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Um, I have no more to add to what you said about Tank, except straighten up and fly right. Uh, get your act together, or you're gonna risk losing what you have. Let's move on to some fights here that's happening this weekend. Just like this previous weekend was loaded, this weekend coming up is pretty loaded too on the boxing tip. So many fights that, unfortunately, in my humble opinion, there are some fighters wallowed up as a result. I'm going to separate this one by one here. And one of the fighters who I think may get swallowed up because of the so many bouts happening across the globe, right? Gail, is Jesse Bam Rodriguez. One of the best fighters. I will put him at elite category at this point. Bam is fighting in a unification bout at 115. Bam has the WBC belts. He's fighting Cafu of South Africa, who scored one of the surprises of the year when he beat Kosei Tanaka in Japan, right, to win that WBO belt.
Oh. Oh.
Wow, we lost him again. Well, let's
There he is again,
Very
back.
good. He looked very. Oh my gosh! Don't tell me I messed up again.
Yeah, we just lost you for a few seconds in that case.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I give Cafu and his team credit for taking the challenge because they didn't really necessarily have to, right? And he looked very good against Kosei Tanaka. But what we come to find out now is that Tanaka was fighting hampered. Severe eye issues. It's caused an early retirement for Tanaka. It's a whole nother proposition against the healthy Bam in his prime. A Bam who's wonderfully skilled, arguably has the best footwork in the sport. I make Bam the favorite here. As much as I respect Cafu and what he did in Japan, Bam Rodriguez is next level, Gail.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is hovering just below the very top names on the pound for pound list. Ring Magazine has him right now at number 7. At number 7 ahead of Canelo, Kenshiro, and David Benavidez. They've only got Nakatani, Beterbiev, Bivol, Crawford, and Inoue ahead right now, and Usyk of Bam Rodriguez. I don't think this is going to present that big a challenge. Cafu's, except for his surprising upset win against Tanaka, which, was compromised a bit, he has not fought the kind of opposition that Rodriguez has. He has not fought on the big stage. Bravo to him for betting on himself, coming to the United States for the first time. But it's going to be a lot for him to handle, and I think he's going to come up short. I hope he puts on a good spirited effort, but Rodriguez has faced a lot of guys that we thought were going to challenge him, and he has absolutely taken them apart over and over. First, it was Quadras. Then it was Rungvisai. Then it was Estrada. Then it was Sonny Edwards, who was on the rise. I don't think things are going to be a whole lot different for Cafu. I hope he enjoys his time in the United States, and I hope he gets a big fat bag to go home with to South Africa.
There's a handful of fighters in the lower weight divisions who really risen above the rest. Inoue at 122, Nakatani at 118. I will argue Kenshiro at 112 and Bam at 115 pounds. I think he's going to show what kind of special fighter I believe he is in this fight against Cafu. It's going to be a headliner of a card in Frisco, Texas, on the zone on the undercard of that. I mentioned Diego Pacheco. He's going to be fighting Trevor McCumbee on the undercard of Bam Rodriguez and Cafu. Let's go from there, Daniel, to let's go to Las Vegas. Um, the headliner, of course, is Manny and Barrios. Excuse me, Barrios is the champion here. He's fighting comeback in Manny Pacquiao. We'll talk about that in a bit. But on the undercard, you have a rematch between Sebastian Fundura, Tszyu. Fundura, when they fought previously, Fundura beat Tszyu. We all remember that horrific cut on over the eye head area of Tszyu. A lot of people felt that fight should have been stopped because of the severity of the cut and the blood. Fundura ended up winning. He is the unified champion now. We've seen Tszyu vulnerable, get stops since.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he can do, not just from a physical point, but from a mental standpoint, given how he's been exposed a bit. I think that Fundora wins, and I think he wins this bout easier than he did the first time around.
You can see the blueprint for that because we have to remember Fundora, much like his sister Gabby, for the division, taller, have better range, and probably has more of a chip on his shoulder, considering that he himself has not exactly been perfect in the fight. We all remember how he went timber in his lone loss, but this is a situation to me where unless Tszyu is really fully willing to eat every bit of offense that Fundora is going to give him, which he's going to give him a lot, in order to land to the body, land the combinations needed to at least rock Fundora, because we know that he can be rocked. It's not going to be a fun night for him. And it's sad in a way, unfortunately, because Tszyu was one of those guys that was coming up. He was exciting. You figured that he would be the one to challenge Mel Charlo for all those belts 154. Obviously, what happened, including the first fight with Fundora. And now you're in the rebuilding stage. Unless he's willing to, like I said, throw caution to the wind, this may be an easier fight for Fundora because Fundora already knows what he needs to do to beat Tszyu. And that cut also gives him a bit of a psychological advantage. Because not only does he know that he can beat Tszyu, he knows that he can hurt Tszyu. And a lot of times for a fighter, that's all you need to win the rematch essentially on cruise control.
It's just a simple fact for me. I just can't get that Murtazalia bout out of my head. Tszyu got bounced all around the ring. I know the different styles, but Fundora can punch, and he has the confidence of a champion, and he knows that he can take what Tszyu brings to him. I think Fundora will fight smarter this time around. I think we'll carry more confidence in the ring. I just see him winning this bout. That fight is going to be on the undercard of Gale. Oh boy, why is this fight happening between Mario Barrios and Manny Pacquiao? I mean, technically, Manny has the right to be in there. They sanctioned him for the bout, but to me, it's clear based off his age, based on what we know about him so far, and I'm not fooled by these clips of him throwing these punches while doing road work and whatnot, supposedly exhibiting fast hands. And I'm watching that. I'm like, he's not as fast as he was 5 years ago, much less 10, 15 years ago during his prime. Barrios should win. If he doesn't, he should be red for filth.
That's not what I expected to hear. Um, I'm very disappointed by this.
I mean,
Nevertheless, I
I
am
mean,
going to go
yeah,
cover the card. You know, I mean,
this doesn't need to happen. It doesn't need to
it
happen.
doesn't. It doesn't. But it's Manny Pacquiao. And if he wants to fight, the boxing world is going to step aside and let him do it. Clearly, there was nobody to talk him out of it. Either he convinced them that he could he could do this. He was he had it within his grasp, his skills, even at his age. But or he just didn't listen. And it's just such a bad idea. But there's money involved. If he was going to cherry pick off somebody for a belt, Barrios was the sort of the natural choice. But I think this does not end well for him. I think it besmirches his Hall of Fame career. Here he was just weeks ago accepting his induction into the Hall of Fame, and he's back in the ring. And you're right. Let's all think back to November and how excited everybody was seeing 58-year-old Mike Tyson hit that heavy bag. Oh my God, he looks like a killer. Oh, he's going to kill Jake Paul. The same stuff's happening right now with people watching Pacquiao. You know, he met with media, did a little workout up at the wild card. You know, he was very charming. His hair's got a lot of silver in it all of a sudden when you see him up close. And yeah, he looked pretty good. There were flashes of the old Pacquiao for the 3.5 minutes he really put on. But he's got to fight, in theory, 12 of those 3 minutes, not just the few in front of the cameras. And I love Pacquiao. I love what he represents. His accomplishments are undeniable. But this is not going to end well.
Concur. I concur. I have no more to add. Again, I stand by what I said. If this fight should not happen, and if Pacquiao ends up winning, uh, this should be a serious indictment on Mario Barrios. You do not allow, even though someone has an Hall of Famer like Pacquiao, you do not allow a 46-year-old fighter who's clearly past his prime, has not fought in a minute to come in there and beat you. You don't let that happen, and he should business. Um, Final fight here before we sign things off. Um, in London, Daniel, rematch between Usyk and Dubois. Um, they fought a few years back. Bit of quote unquote controversy in round, I think 5 it was, where Dubois hit Usyk with a punch in the midsection. Usyk went down. It was ruled a low blow. A lot of fans believed at the time that it was a legal punch. Usyk was given time to recover, timeout, and whatever. And then he eventually came on from that point and stopped Dubois in 8. But in the years since that first fight, the transformation of Daniel Dubois, we've seen what he done against Big.
Uh, okay, yeah. Unfortunately, sorry, Mike, but
I think we got the point,
yeah,
and
we
I
we
think we know what we need to hear from you, Daniel. What do you think's going to happen with the much improved Dubois going back into the lion's den
The two.
against Usyk?
He's closer to 40 than he is to 30 at this point. He's already on record saying he's only going to fight one more time. Please don't one more time, right?
yeah.
2 more fights, this fight and presumably a third fight against Tyson Fury if he wins. We'll talk about that hopefully next week. I don't want to see that fight happen either, but that's another subject for another day, right? Back to this fight. Everything on balance, Usyk is still the better boxer in my opinion, but you cannot discredit someone who's hungry, who's who has a great desire to fight someone, and again, who's riding a wave of confidence. We will
Yes,
see what happens.
yes, he is running the wave of confidence, and actually was checking Twitter, and somebody did post literally a clip just as you were asking this. One of the clips of one of the best fights of this comeback for Dubois. The way he knocked out Anthony Joshua, laid him out with that right hook out of nowhere, ultimately wound up fully knocking him out. The difference, unfortunately, is that Usyk is not Joshua. He's not going to be a sloppy fighter trying to land a Hail Mary punch to beat you. He's going to come in technically. He's going to jab. He's going to use the footwork that he has to dodge the big bombs that Dubois is going to wind up trying to throw. And on top of that, he knows how to counter very well. Like, we have to remember, this is Oleksandr Usyk, the man who dominated the cruiserweight division and has essentially been a somewhat undefeated fighter, pretty much has been an undefeated fighter throughout. I think this will probably be a closer fight than probably people expect, but I expect Usyk to come out on top now. Yes, we can say it could be because of Saudi money, trying to put in a third Tyson Fury fighter, which I'll just say enough. For the love of God, fuck no. Fuck no. If you're gonna give me a bum fight, give me Usyk versus Wilder at that point. I don't need to see a third fight against a Tyson Fury that's probably gonna be even less motivated than he was in this fight. But I expect Usyk to come out on top, and if he does have one more fight, and if it's not against Fury, I probably would expect a gimme hometown fight in Kiev. Probably get somebody middling, somebody in the top 10 maybe, or even try to give somebody a local Balkan, Eastern European fighter, something like Hrgovic, a chance to fight, make it a regional affair before riding off into the sunset.
Last word on this, Gail, before we sign things off and before my Wi-Fi runs out on me. Dear gosh.
You have been a trooper, man, Doug, overcoming all that tonight. We do appreciate it. I think this will be a more competitive fight than the first one, but Usyk is not Joshua. And Dubois, while he's got the ability to knock him out, he is not going to find the target. Joshua left himself open. And credit to him, Dubois knew what to do when presented the opportunity. He's just not going to get the opportunity against Usyk. I think he'll look pretty good. I think he'll certainly redeem himself from his what turned out to be a poor performance in the first fight. And he's daring to take a chance on himself, and I applaud that. I admire that. It's not going to lower his stock in my eyes whatsoever. Now, I'm not sure we are going to see Usyk for another fight. He has very little left to prove. He needs to feel motivated, and he's got a lot going on outside boxing. He's concerned for the fate of his country. He's a deeply religious man. He's got a family that he's very devoted to. And he's made generational wealth. He does not need to fight for money. And I don't think he does fight for money. Really, past a certain point, how much money do you need? So here's the question. We're going to get some combination of Joshua, Wilder, and Fury, whether we like it or not. So which one of the combinations
Oh dear.
the least objections to? My prediction is that we're going to see Fury and Joshua. Because that's a fight that the British public's still interested in. It will still fill Wembley Stadium. And, honestly, they're pretty even at the stage of their respective careers. It's just a lot of big, big, big money. And they're both sort of at the same level at this point. People have always wanted to see it. It's going to be a little bit Mayweather-Pacquiao without Mayweather's record. But I think if you just aren't into it, don't buy the pay-per-view.
That part. And I think we're going to end things on that note. Again, I want to apologize for my technical issues, for the technical issues on my end. I hope to get that fixed next time we come on. I want to thank everybody who joined us. Shout out to Sam B. Comment from him before we leave, before we sign off. He says, "Are we sure that Shakur has turned the corner yet? I think he's the goods, but not sure he has enough pop to at least hurt opponents to keep them honest, especially against a power puncher." Your reaction to his comments in terms of our discussion about Shakur Stevenson?
My reaction is he doesn't need to hurt his opponents. We know he's got pop. How much? Maybe you could still argue about that, but he doesn't need it because he has so many other tools in the toolkit to keep somebody from being a threat to him. Doesn't mean he has to run at all. And truly, it was astonishing to see him letting Zepeda tee off on him while he was on the ropes and do little, if any, damage. And let's also mark that I don't think anybody talked about. Zepeda hit Shakur to the body a hell of a lot. And Shakur took those shots like a champ.
Yeah,
so
he's probably still pissing blood.
I'll tell you what, I'm impressed. My biggest concern about Shakur is the issue of his hands being fragile. I understand that he has really devoted a lot of effort to maintaining the fitness and health of his hands. He's got a special hand specialist physiotherapist. I guess he does exercises on the hand every single day. Clearly that paid off. I think that is probably the biggest limitation for Shakur is how long are his hands going to hold out? I am concerned about that.
Here's my thing, and this will be the final word. If Lamont Roach is not a big puncher either for a junior lightweight, right? If he was able to get Tank Davis's respect, right? And it looks like even may have buckled him once or twice during that fight. What makes you think that Shakur could not do the same thing when Shakur is a much more accurate puncher than Roach, has a faster hands than Roach, it has a better radar when it comes to his eyes than Lamont Roach.
Well, and he can be so economical with his offense because he's so accurate.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's right.
he can, he could leave a lot more reserves in the tank, no pun intended. He doesn't have to blitz somebody.
Indeed. So I don't see any problems with if Shakur comes up in the form that we saw against Zepeda. I see him having no problems at least getting guys getting their respect with his shots. So again, I want to thank you, Sam B. I want to thank Compliance Restoring and Roofing, longtime listener of Pound for Pound Box Report. And for anybody else who's checking us out on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. To do so, you will get notifications on future episodes. I'll go around the panel here. As always, we begin with ladies first, going to end with ladies first. L from NY Fights, fresh off of a trip to New York to cover the Taylor Serrano card, as well as the matchroom card, which featured Shakur and Sheeraz's stoppage over Berlanga. Gail from nyfights.com. Let the folks know where they can find you for anyone who wants to talk boxing.
And let me just thank the city of New York for its hospitality. I am West Coast based, even though I work for a website called NY Fights. But there is no denying the magic of a big fight card at Madison Square Garden still. And it is still a huge achievement in any boxer's career, particularly an international boxer, to have the opportunity to fight in the big room on that big stage in front of those New York fans at Madison Square Garden. And I'm so glad that part of American boxing is still alive and thriving, and there need to be more cards at MSG. I will be in Las Vegas this week for Pacquiao and Barrios. I am very intrigued to see what happens between Fundura and Tszyu, and I do think that this was a mistake by Tszyu. He should have fought Keith Thurman. That's another discussion. I am obviously at nyfights.com, which is where my boxing coverage is. I'm doing a lot more interviews, and those are on my YouTube channel. It's under my name, Gail Falkenthal on Boxing. My most recent interview was with the women's Olympic bronze medalist for the United States, O'Shea Jones, who has a fight coming up in 2 weeks. She has got her first world title and is undefeated and going to defend it. And she's a super interview. I encourage you to check it out.
Indeed, indeed. I go to you, Daniel, for anybody who wants to talk the sweet science, for anyone who wants to talk pro wrestling, for anyone who wants to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can find you, where they can hit you up.
You said everyone, folks. RAWKZ99, Brokers99 on all platforms. Twitter, because it ain't never gonna be X Elon. Twitter, Blue Sky, Spill. Even I think a little bit on Discord, although I may have to say something about that in the future. But I'll definitely, if these next 2 weeks are any indication of what this year will be, we will have recovered from a very, very lackluster first half of 2025.
Oh my gosh. Indeed, indeed, because boxing for the first 6 months of the year has been just horrible. I'll go out and say it has not been good at all. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and maybe occasional smell good, you know what it is with me on Twitter, because like Daniel, I refuse to call it X, Brother JR at Brother JR76. You can also check me out on IG, Brother JRSC. On the next episode, we will have a rundown, a recap of Bam Rodriguez and his unification bout against Phumelele Cafu. Bam having a WBC belt, Cafu having a WBO belt at 115 pounds. That's going to be in Frisco, Texas on July 19th on DAZN on the undercard there. Diego Pacheco versus Trevor McCumbee. Diego Pacheco was ranked number 1 by one of the organizations at 168. I will be covering that card for Three Kings Boxing. Please check out threekingsboxing.com, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the crew over at Three Kings, 2K, the man behind Three Kings, Bo, who you heard on the show numerous times. He's senior writer. Bakari, senior writers, all the contributors, Jay, Zoe, Corey, and others, Red, behind the scenes. I will be covering that call for threekingsboxing.com. Also, on the 19th, you will have where Gail will be in attendance in Las Vegas, the aforementioned bout between Barrios and Manny Pacquiao. Barrios defending the WBC belt at 147 pounds on the undercard of that. Sebastian Fundura fighting Tszyu, the rematch there. Fundura unified champion at 154. Also on that card, Isaac Cruz and Brandon Figueroa and Gary Russell Jr. Fighting at 135 pounds. Also in London, the aforementioned rematch between Usyk and Dubois. Usyk is the unified champ. That is going to be for undisputed status at heavyweight. So we will talk about as many fights on those cards as possible. Also, we will preview Xander Zayas fighting for getting his first world title try at 154 pounds. Zayas, you've heard here on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Before most were talking about him, we interviewed Zayas here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report. He's going to fight Jorge Garcia for the vacant WBO belt at 154 pounds. That's going to be July 26th in NYC. Bruce Shushu Carrington is going to fight on the undercard, as well as really, really good prospect, Emiliano Vargas, the son of Fernando Vargas. So we will talk about those bouts. And Clarissa Shields is also fighting on the 26th in Detroit for undisputed heavyweight championship against Lonnie Daniels. So we will talk about those bouts again. I want to thank everybody who joined us on the show. My sincerest apologies again for the technical issues on my end. For Gil of nyfights.com, for Daniel of 4Boxing News and the Inscriber. I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 470 of Pound Pound Boxing Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.